Welcome to the WriterDojo with your host, Steve Diamond
I want the truth!
and Larry Correia.
You can't handle the truth!
Today's episode, politics.
Welcome, everybody, back to the WriterDojo.
Steve adjusts the sound back down.
Glad to have you all back with us today. Today, on this wonderful episode of the WriterDojo, it is time for Forbidden Episode number 2.
That's right. We've talked about writing religion,
Yep.
and now we're going to forbidden topic number 2, writing politics.
That's
And
right.
forbidden topic 3, we're going to bring in special guests because we both really suck at writing romance.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Well, I
Politics.
can write romance. I just can't write,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm more of a fade to black guy in my fiction.
I am a fade to black guy.
Okay. So, politics, Larry. Now, again, I'll say the same sort of thing that I said at the beginning of the religion episode. When what we're talking about is politics, injecting politics into your stories as a tool. Okay. The goods, the bads, the ways you can employ this. Now there's different ways you can do this. Just like in that previous episode, we'll start off by talking about injecting real world politics into your contemporary fiction. And then pretty much what we'll do in the second half is saying, oh, okay, well, you have your secondary world fantasy or your sci-fi that's like way the frick out there, inventing politics in political structures for those sorts of things.
Yep.
So, but the first question always is, why would we want to put politics into our fiction?
I think it's just like religion. It is a valuable storytelling and world building tool. It fleshes out people, that people have beliefs. And I think a lot of like politics and religion, I think this is a lot of the forbidden topics you don't bring up at Thanksgiving dinner, is because they are things that people are passionate about. And they're foundational and fundamental philosophical things that make people who they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
many people have their own personal identities and their worldviews so wrapped up and entangled with the politics they believe in.
Well, they're so intertwined, and this is a dangerous one too. Because when we talk about politics and writing, there's a thing that I've personally railed on and I've become well known for is the whole politicize. I'm not talking about using politics in your fiction. I'm talking about the politicization of fiction, where your fiction becomes a big club to beat people over the head with about the message. The message. We both like critical drinkers, so I'm a fan. I'm a fan of critical drinker.
Indeed,
I think his analysis as a writer, I think his analysis is usually pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I agree with him most of the time. But that said, there is a danger right now where the message overcomes your ability to entertain. There's the Jim Butcher quote of, "Don't preach harder than you can entertain."
Right.
And that's a pitfall that a lot of writers fall into, especially if they fit the current paradigm of what is acceptable politics in mainstream publishing, which is overwhelmingly 99.9% pointed in one direction.
Right. Well, and it's just like we discussed in the religion episode. The idea that there's a radical difference between you, the author, making every character within your story have the exact same politics as you do.
Or every good character.
Or every good character, excuse me. Yes. Every good character believes the way you do. Every bad character is the one that's diametrically opposed to your own personal worldview.
Right.
That's a radical difference between, I have character A. Character A happens to be a libertarian or whatever. He's friends with character B, who happens to be a super liberal artist or whatever, right? Again, speaking in terms of like say contemporary fiction. And unfortunately, we're going to use one of the same authors that we used in the religion one as an example.
Isn't that ironic?
Oddly enough, you see this in shows like, say, American Horror Story, or
That's the most ham-fisted writing
super
ever.
ham-fisted.
It's so ham-fisted.
So disappointing. And then guys like Stephen King,
Yep.
where recently every book, the villain is basically, oh well, you're a Republican and you're Trump. I mean, shoot, that was literally Sleeping Beauties. That's one of the big parts in the early chunk of the
he's
book.
been like that for a long time, because I remember Under the Dome, it was a thinly veiled Dick Cheney and George Bush.
Right.
So it was like the heinous
Homer Simpson.
yeah, which is funny because he just wrote the Simpsons movie, but it was like the heinous, evil, manipulative politician, and then the dumb idiot politician who gets led around by them. It was like so Dick Cheney and George Bush. It was like, dude, come on. It couldn't have been any more. I mean, if it was fists of ham, dude, I could smell the Hormel from across the room.
And not even good smoked ham.
No. We're talking Walmart watery ham here.
This is like MRE out of a can ham.
Oh, it was
Not in a good way.
It was MRE in a bag ham with fake eggs. It smelled like sulfur. No, it's the thing is, like, so yeah. Stephen King is a good example of this, where if it's a Republican, they're evil. If they're religious, they're evil. If they're like a devout Christian, they're evil. If they're, the guy with the MAGA hat is going to lynch you and throw bleach on you, whatever it may be. It's
screaming, "This is MAGA country."
In Chicago at 3:00 in the morning in the winter.
Juicy Smollett.
Juicy Smollett. French. He's a French actor.
French actor.
That was the most changes I had to make to Tom Stranger was I had to put allegedly, when I was talking about Juicy Smollett, I had to put allegedly. The Audible lawyers had me put allegedly in there like 11 times, so I just leaned into it. I had allegedly in that book so many times every time I talked about that guy. So, by the way, if you haven't read Tom Stranger, a lot of fun. Very political too. No, but so when you're doing politics in contemporary world and you introduce it as a thing, you got to do it based upon the point of view character and what they would think.
Yeah.
And it's all the same exact stuff we talk about in the religious episode, which is funny because for a lot of people, politics are religion. They just replace God with the state or whatever it may be. And you run into a lot of the same exact issues.
It's interesting when Mike Rothman and I were writing New Arcadia, and then the sequel, Operation Thrall, which comes out when this airs, it comes out like a couple weeks later. Part of it is it's determining who that character is, who the main character is. And some of it does have, in our case, some of it did revolve around the politics of the character. And I remember as we were going through it, and I was doing some of the writing on this, I remember thinking, okay, what would this character believe? This character was trafficked as a young girl, grew up being sold around and handed around. Violence was enacted on her, but she gets an ability. She undergoes a change that gives her a physical reason to where she can combat that past. And I remember thinking, okay, if I'm a person in that situation, what would I believe politically? And I don't mean and I don't necessarily mean dogmatically, like, oh, right or left leaning, because politics are always more complicated than that. It was what rights would she demand personally for her own worldview? You can't just say, well, she believes this. It's okay. I need to rationalize through thoughts, through past experience, through attitude, through how she sees other people behaving towards other people. There's a scene in Operation Thrall where her neighbor's getting beat down by her abusive boyfriend. And so I'm like, okay, well, how would she react to that? Well, with extreme prejudice and violence, because no, she ain't taking that crap anymore.
Yeah, it's part of the character.
And so these beliefs, and some of them are personal in nature, but some of these are become political beliefs because of where the story takes place.
Right.
And so I thought very, very carefully about that. Now, and it so happens that some of those beliefs are the same ones that I happen to have philosophically myself,
Which does
but
make
not,
it easier.
which makes it easier.
Yeah.
Because I can kind of, I feel like I can get in those shoes when I'm writing it easier.
Well, it is certainly easier to make it more believable
Yeah.
and more visceral to that character
Yeah.
because you believe it yourself.
Mhm.
I think a skilled writer can write from another perspective and totally engage it. And the thing is, I have written from the perspective of people who are diametrically different than me
Yeah.
on my fundamental belief level. I mean, for those of you just joining us, I am very, very, very political. I'm super crazy political.
What?
My opinion on quite literally every topic in the universe is on public record, and I'm pretty much on the right, but I'm also very, very liberty minded. I kind of hate the government and think it's dumb and
No.
screws up literally everything. And yeah, so I mean, and I've written political books, I've written nonfiction books, so I'm pretty much an open book. But that said, as a writer, as an artist, as a creator, I've got to be able to get into the heads of others and write them in a way that's believable and not just a caricature.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of amateur writers or writers who are hacks fail.
Yeah, well, or it's their intention.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the other one too. Is the intent. And so if you want to win,
There's ignorance and then there's attention.
if you want to win the accolades of the worst people in publishing, then you will specifically write in a way where, like we talked about in the last episode, where the religious people are all stupid bigots.
Yeah.
Where anybody who's to the right of Chairman Mao is an evil, racist, monstrous, bigoted, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, who hates the environment and wants to burn tires and kill all the bald eagles, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Polar bears, Larry.
They want to
Polar bears.
they want to kick the transsexual 2-year-old kittens, whatever the hell the thing of the day is. It's all bullcrap. Okay, those people don't care about storytelling. They don't care about quality. They don't care about entertainment. They care about message. They care about beating you over the head.
Right.
So honestly, those guys, if you want to cater to that market, be my guest.
Well, and to be completely fair, I don't want us to just say, oh, the dying polar bear fiction, as we've called it before. But there's also the complete opposite side of that spectrum too.
Oh man, so the people on our site are just as annoying.
Yes.
And can be, because once again they lose track of
My
don't entertain harder than you can preach.
yeah, one of my buddies, our buddies actually, Howard.
Or I had that backwards.
Yeah, don't preach
Yeah.
harder than you can entertain. One of our buddies, Howard Jones,
Good
Howard
guy.
Ranger Jones, freaking awesome dude. He and I were having a conversation the other day, and it's like, okay, the overly shrill left and the overly self-righteous right, and it's this idea that if you're catering strictly as hard as you can to the outlying poles on that bell curve, one, I think just from a business standpoint, you're absolutely limiting yourself.
Yeah, but each one is really big.
Yes.
So you can actually do really good. And so
I'm sure you can.
So the thing is, I know like guys, like, I mean, as much as he annoys the crap out of me, John Scalzi.
He sells
sells
books.
I disagree with literally everything that man says and believes. However, he probably sells pretty close to what I do. I think
Yeah.
me and him are pretty similar in book sales. That said, I think the percentage of people on my side of the aisle that like read John Scalzi books is infinitesimally small.
Well, and vice versa.
Vice
probably be
versa.
true.
There are not a lot of communists who love Larry Correia novels.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I mean, there might be one, and he has to hide it so they don't send him to the gulag. But the thing is, so yeah, you can actually do that, but once again, it comes down to what you're trying to accomplish in the story.
Mhm.
And really, and so if you want to cater to that market, you do it, which is really kind of funny because I don't cater so much as I just tell stories. Now, the stories definitely have parts of my personal philosophy in them and my politics in them.
I want to say,
I'm still getting yelled at for not having FDR be a perfect,
for crying out
wonderful
loud.
person in Grimnoir. But the thing is,
How dare you copy X-Men?
I wrote an extremely realistic, and for a fantasy novel, I wrote an extremely historically accurate FDR.
Yeah.
And boy, I got yelled at for that.
Yeah. I do want to point out, I think there's a misconception in in the world of fiction writing, there's the concept that, and I think we see this a lot, where it's, I'm so tired of politics in my fiction. I don't want people to inject their politics in my fiction.
Yeah, we
Tough
should
cookies.
specify what that means.
Tough cookies, because politics, whatever they are, or your politics and your worldviews are always going to end up somehow in your fiction.
Yeah, so let's specify what we talk about. We're talking about putting politics in fiction. Politics are part of life. Politics are things that happen. But the problem you run into is when you insert them where they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
When you insert them as a club.
Yeah.
Or you insert them in a way that is clumsy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is, going back to that Jim quote about preaching, if you want to have themes and you want to have political messages in your book, that's actually fine. I'm not anti-message fix. It's about putting it in a way that's organic and it feels right. Now, if you have it where every single character who believes what you believe is good and sainted and awesome, and every character who believes different than you is evil and stupid and bad and dumb, that is clumsy. Yeah. It's awkward. And that will only appeal to the people who are on that side. Not only that, it'll actually kind of only appeal to the dumb ones.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that, for example, that you and I both, our politics tend to be almost a frickin' circle.
Yeah, we're fairly close to just you aren't as loud, and so people think you're more reasonable than I am.
Correct. No, I'm more of a kill you in your sleep sort of a guy.
Yeah, I'm kill you to the face.
Yeah. So, that's the only warning that the frickin' Facebook group has ever gotten. It was because of me, because I make a joke like that. Good grief! I didn't even earn it. I'm so depressed. I didn't even get to say anything like radical. I get us a Facebook strike. Anyway, it's. Even then, though, when you and I we've heard of books being written, or we've read books out there where the politics themselves actually do reflect what we personally believe, but it's the manner in which the data is presented where I'm just kind of like, are you kidding me right now? Like, okay, Michael Crichton's State of Fear.
Oh, I
hate that book.
That book is a political propaganda book.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with it or not.
And it's right-leaning propaganda.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with...
Yeah. I hate that book.
Yeah, because it's preachy message.
It's too much, dude.
Yeah. You know, that's the kicker. It's that careful balancing act. If you want to have that real-world stuff in there, great.
Yeah.
More power to you. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's got to be a book first.
Well, okay. And
the nonfiction section's over there.
Right. Now, this goes back to one of the things we always talk about when it comes to character development. Okay, the idea that a character, and we see this in contemporary fiction. You see this. It's like, Joe the plumber walked into the Smithsonian and noticed the blah 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 type of architecture and the da 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 type of crown
where everybody
molding.
notices whatever it is the author knows a lot about.
Right.
Dresses. That was the one that gets me.
Yep.
Everybody knows dress.
Yeah.
Most dudes don't know a dang thing about dresses. Yeah, it's a dress.
The fantasy peasant, the peasant in the fantasy knows like every ingredient that's been used in this high-end restaurant in a fantasy world. It's like, that dude probably only has eaten potatoes. He doesn't know what anything else is. So here's my point. Politics, much like anything else, if you're going to insert that, and I think and I personally feel like it's important and it's a great tool for you to use in your story. I think that it's just like what we always talk about with architecture or dresses or whatever. Not every character is political.
No. Yeah, they aren't. In real life, most people aren't.
Now, if you're writing a political thriller, then perhaps your main character should probably be involved in politics and understand it.
Well, I think part of the problem too is a lot of authors tend to be terminally online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Terminally online. When I say terminally online, I mean people who are on Twitter all flipping day.
Yeah.
Okay. And the terminally online people tend to think that everybody's as political as they are.
Yeah.
Most people aren't. In fact, terminally
most
online people are
don't
really
care.
annoying.
Most people just don't freaking care, dude.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know how often, like, I'll bring, because I'm extremely political. And I
Well,
like to
let's say.
keep up on it. And I keep up on this stuff because, and actually it's funny because I read,
But you've always been political, though.
oh, since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is and also I'm Portuguese. I was born to fight. I love to
Well,
fight. I can't help it. It's in my DNA. But the other thing is too is like I read more stuff from people I disagree with than actually with people I do agree with because I like to know the other side's arguments better than they do. But I have to recognize I'm weird. I am not a normal person. So if I'm writing a book for normal people about normal people who aren't terminally online weirdos,
Kind of pull it back.
I need to pull it back.
Yeah.
In fact, if you notice, like in Monster Hunter, so it's like my mainstream urban fantasy kind of thing. Most of the Monster Hunters tend to have politics that are kind of in line with their jobs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I mean, sure. You know, the actual MHI organization is like effing feds,
Right.
and the feds are like, "You stupid peasants! Do you not understand what we're trying
Well,
to
here's
do
the kicker.
here?"
I get yelled at all the time by people who think Monster Hunter is really, really political. And the thing is, if you have ever worked in, say, military contracting, which is probably the nearest comparison to Monster Hunter.
You haven't gone near far enough.
No, I haven't.
No, it's so toned.
No, it's so toned down. Because people in military contracting despise the federal government.
Yes.
Because we work with it every single
Well,
day.
this is the story that I've always talked about, right?
Yeah.
You know, me growing up as a son of in a cop family,
Yeah.
I thought my politics were a certain way,
Uh-huh.
and then when I started working for you or working with you, for you and with you, at the DoD stuff, you're like, "Oh, Steve, that's cute. You're gonna lose all faith in everything.
You
here
have
soon."
no idea how bad everything is.
Within I don't know, at least
Couple months.
1 or 2 minutes.
Oh.
I realized just how little I understood,
Yeah.
and how I had not yet dug into the depths of hatred.
Yeah. So it's funny to me. So I get these negative reviews. People are like, well, M8 or Monster Hunter is super libertarian and super against the government and very right wing. Dude, for people who go into that kind of line of work where you are a professional who does violence for a living,
You're a professional killer.
under contract to get paid to do scary violent crap, you garner certain mindsets, right? It's kind of like, I don't know what the stat is now because the military has gotten wonkier over the years since I've been away from it. But back when I was selling guns to Green Berets, combat arms was like 93% Republican.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you were in combat arms, if you were infantry, or you were some guy, you were trigger pulling MOS, your politics, you had like a 93% chance that you were going one way, because that's the kind of people that gravitate. I don't know what it is now. I have no idea. I've been away way too long.
Yeah.
I haven't sold guns to the military in like 15 years. Okay. But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the thing is, if I'm writing Monster Hunter, if I had a bunch of flowery hippy dippies, peace, love, whatever.
Well, they don't fit in that world.
They don't fit.
They're the ones that get eaten in your world.
Exactly. And so the thing is, it depends on the kind of story you're trying to tell.
Right.
With authenticity and still not go overboard with the message fic. And so,
Right.
so what we'll get in Monster Hunter is like how much these people, because I'll get these people who love the government will get offended because people in MHI don't trust the government and they make fun of the government. And the thing is, that is toned down.
Yes.
And then the thing is also later on, I went and I wrote Monster Hunter Nemesis. I wrote an entire book from the perspective of the government guys.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I treated it fair. It's the same thing as like Agent Myers. Agent Myers starts out as a guy who is he's an antagonist. He's the government dude.
Same with Jefferson.
Same as Grant. But as stuff goes on, you get their perspectives too. So even though they're diametrically opposed to the good guys and their mission and what they're doing, and they're in the thorn on the side, they're still believable people who have their own motivations, even if they totally disagree.
Right. All right. I think we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. Let's talk about, when we come back, inserting these sorts of politics and creating politics into other worlds. We'll be right back.
Something terrible lies hidden in the land of the Aranak, buried in the stone of the mountain known as the Horn of Torgiv, a secret that is dire, dark, diabolical, Travel with Hal Cedric as he uncovers a secret long forgotten by the ages. Herman P. Hunter presents The Revenant and the Tomb. Available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Apple Store, and more. Buy it today.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Okay, look, as you can tell, Larry and I have perhaps on occasion discussed and ranted about politics to each other and with each other before.
Dude, I could have been a talk radio host. Give me 3 hours a day. I will rant.
Yeah, for forever.
5 days a week, 3 hours a day.
You know, I think in generally what happens on these episodes, some inside baseball here. You know, we pause for break, and it's you know that's for Jack to insert commercial here later. But what it usually ends up happening is we just kind of continue our conversation. And when we're ranting, we tend to just keep ranting for a few minutes.
We say all the stuff that we're not going to say on air.
Correct.
Yeah.
But towards the very end of it, of our kind of in-between conversation, which will never hear the light of day, we don't want to get demonetized, is Larry, you said it's complicated.
Yeah, we were talking about a certain political issue of our day that's a hot button topic. And
Yeah. But what I want to focus on that word, though, the complicated nature of what politics is. And I think
because that's where the good stuff.
that's
story comes from.
exactly. Whether we're talking about contemporary stuff or historical stuff or fully created secondary world stuff, I think that's the key towards making your stories and using the tool of politics in your story to making it feel real. Because politics, whether you like it or not, it's freaking complicated.
It is. And it's interesting. So this is where I think politics is useful in fiction.
Yeah.
And this is where, because it gives nuance to the characters, it gives depth to the world, and it makes it feel real. One of the best sequences in Justified was when Art Mullen is sitting in his car on a stakeout, watching some bad guys following Wynn Duffy, and he's listening to Rush Limbaugh. No commentary upon it, but he's just doing a thing. They're like, I can't remember what his rating was, like 60 million listeners a day or whatever the heck it was, and Art was just a regular old dude.
Well, yeah. Or one of the other things, it was it's Raylan, Tim, and Art in a car together. Not political, but it speaks to the same sort of character detail. You know, the Raylan and Art are in the front and they're talking, and then Tim from behind starts chiming in about Lord of the Rings, like a Lord of the Rings reference. And you're like, they don't explain it. That's all he just drops the reference. I think it's about like Mines of Moria or something, right? It was either Mines of Moria or it was Helm's Deep. I can't remember which reference he made.
Yep.
I think it was Moria.
But it's that kind of thing. It's depth.
You know, it's depth, and a lot of times, and this is where like the TV shows and the movies, where that sort of visual medium, you can you get a benefit there because you can shorthand that. It's Art listening to a political commentary, and you're like, I can infer based on his job and what he's listening to. Oh, okay. I pretty much know where he's at.
Yeah.
And if that's what he believes, I understand why he gets angry when Raylan does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah,
all at the same time.
Art Merlin is clearly a Republican.
Yeah.
You know, it's just...
And it feels legit to his character.
It does. And apparently behind the scene, that was actually Nick Searcy's idea.
No, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I actually wrote the foreword to his book.
Yeah. He wrote the foreword to yours, right?
He did, yes.
Yeah.
He wrote the foreword.
Yeah, you guys traded.
Yep, we did. We traded
Yeah.
forwards. Good dude.
Okay. So with all this in mind, the complicated nature of politics, and the potential benefits that it can bring to your world, to your characters, let's talk about secondary world. So either fantasy or science fiction that's so far out there that it's not our own universe anymore.
This is huge, and I think this is a massive part of world building.
Absolutely.
And think as much as I'm not a fan, but Game of Thrones, extremely political.
The politics in it I actually think the politics in it
Probably the best
are
part.
probably the part that actually, whether people realize it or not, that's actually what's interesting them. It's the political machinations behind the scenes.
Honor Harrington,
Yep.
extremely political,
Mhm.
extremely political.
Brandon Sanderson's stuff actually tends to be very political. Mistborn is exceptionally political.
Actually, Mistborn is very political.
in a great way.
So that's a really interesting thing, guys. And one nice thing about having it be a fantasy or sci-fi is you are now disconnected from our current issues. The weak path is where you take a far future thing, or you take a distant fantasy world, and you insert whatever American politic thing is circa this year,
Yeah.
whatever our hot button, and you put it into the fantasy world. And it's funny because people will defend this, like, well, they did that on Star Trek. Yes, Star Trek was a show that was on TV 80 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We're getting old now. And they did this thing, and yes, they did that. But that doesn't mean that every other show for the history of the universe needs to do that, because that gets really friggin' annoying.
Yeah.
And it's just funny to me, though. I'll see, like, this, they'll have a fantasy world, right? Like, totally alien fantasy world. They have dragons, they have peasants. Obviously, they have different stuff going on in their lives than we do in America in 2023. Yeah. But what is it about? It's
Racism.
about whatever.
Yeah.
Like, remember the Dragon Age 2?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was the stupidest writing of any video game I've ever played in my life, where, like, literally every single character in this epic fantasy world from across the universe with dragons and magics and invasions from other dimensions, and there's freaking monsters running around eating people.
Demons, yeah.
Demons from hell. But what did everybody sound like? They sounded like some freaking gender studies major with rainbow hair off the streets of Portland.
Yeah.
And it was so dumb and weak. What a wasted opportunity.
Because Dragon Age 1's awesome.
Oh, number 1 was great. And so the thing is, guys, if you're doing this kind of stuff and you're creating your fantasy world from scratch, don't be weak and boring and derivative. Okay? If you want to hit themes, you want to hit modern political themes. Like, I have a theme that runs through a lot of my stuff that comes down to basically individual freedom and individual liberty,
correct,
versus collectivism. And then I hang a lampshade on it, right? So it's not an overt thing, but it's just a thing that comes up a lot, even when I don't intend to, because it's one of my fundamental building blocks of my personality.
Well, and in addition to that, it's a theme that you like writing from a character perspective.
Well, it gives me interesting story opportunities.
Right, right.
But the thing is, I don't put it, if I'm doing a fantasy, like Son of the Black Sword, this is a huge part of that book. Huge part of that book.
Right.
And they're not good at it, because they're a society that hasn't had this. This is an entirely alien concept. They come from a society where everybody has a place. The law says what you do. That is what your life is what the law has determined for you. And I'm writing about people who are breaking the law from the perspective mostly of a guy who was a perfect servant of the law up until he wasn't. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to tell stories.
Yeah. But
I'm not sticking it in American 2023 political issues, because that's just stupid and boring.
Well, okay, so the science fiction series I'm writing, okay, Call of the Void. So the main character, he lives on this planet towards the edge of the galaxy. He was brought there as a child, and he's a child slave labor, and they grow up there. All of them, all the people around him, it's like, oh, there's the kids that are brought in on containers and stuff, and they're
and
your
you
slave.
should be able to write about slavery without getting yelled at.
Right.
But you'll get yelled at.
But here's the thing. It's, it's slavery in terms of kids and age and who you belong to. It has little to do with race. I mean, it has nothing to do with race or anything like that, because this is so far in the future that, where you've got planets and solar systems everywhere. That kind of stuff that would feel like injecting today's politics into it. No. Where you have massive corporations that are ruling the galaxy, well, it's about profit. It's about labor. Whether you're talking about the positive nature of it versus the negative nature of it.
That's one thing too. So if you limit your world building to just American belief system 2023 X, then you're losing opportunities. Like if you look at like the history of slavery, and a million stories that could be told about that. I mean, Spartacus. Okay,
Well, everywhere from Irishmen to Chinese.
the word Slav.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a very, people tend to distill politics down to its simplest, basest form rather than dumbest form, the lowest
most
common,
ignorant.
the lowest common denominator.
Well, because we had that issue with a couple of years ago where we had that book that got canceled. We talked about it on the show.
Oh, the Chinese. It was the Chinese one.
Yeah,
right?
because she wrote a Asian-based fantasy and it had slavery in it, and she got yelled at like, "How dare you!"
Well, yeah, and the whole point was that the character realizes how bad it is and fights against it.
Yeah,
I'm
because only black people have slavery, and it's like, wait, what? No, that slavery is actually the default of most of human existence.
yeah,
Not having slavery, having all people be free and not owned by other people is an anomaly in human history. And so, and this has only been an anomaly for not very long.
Well, so imagine if you choose as an author to distill down that politic to that one, to whatever the lowest common denominator is of this, you're missing out. You're missing out on the opportunity here.
You're missing out on story opportunities.
If you want to write a story where slavery is a main component in some fictional world, or a fictional universe, so to speak, okay, well then actually look at it and say, okay, well, it's almost never, well, it is never just one thing. It's a weird conglomerate. It's multifaceted. There's various reasons for it.
Well,
You
it's not,
you have to encompass all those. You have to hit it from
once
all those
it's
angles.
complicated. It's never simplistic.
Correct.
If you want to write simplistic, go for it. But if you're using politics in your book to fluff up the book and make it more interesting and more intriguing, then you don't want to do that. You don't want to have. It's kind of like we talked about the religion episode. Hi, I work for the God of evil. I work for the God of good.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, okay.
Well, or like the Western cliches. I wear a white hat. He wears a black hat.
Yeah.
One is good and one is bad.
It's like, hi, I'm from the super good guy party, and I was like, hi, I'm from the evil party,
Yes.
and check out my cool Hugo Boss uniforms.
Yeah.
It's kind of lazy and stupid.
Right.
And sometimes history does serve this up to you on a silver platter where it really is the evil bastards with the skulls and the and the Hugo Boss uniforms and the riding boots. Okay, it is pretty obvious, team bad guy here. But the thing is, if you're doing politics, and especially if you're writing where you're writing from multiple perspectives, like Lee Modest's really good at this.
Yeah.
Like Lee Modest's really, he'll get really political. And
he's very good at politics.
And he's really good too at jumping from faction to faction, from book to book, and making everybody seem like, okay, this is why they do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because guys, ultimately, if you're writing about humans or aliens that are human analogs or whatever it is, they're sentient beings, whatever you're writing about, space whales, I don't know. They have a belief system for a reason. Okay, even though I disagree with certain political beliefs, collectivism, whatever, maybe. I get it. I understand the appeal. I understand the appeal of communism because, hey, I get it. I get the ads. I mean, I get why you would believe. Now,
I understand why people like the sound bites.
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever the topic may be. I get the appeal. That's one reason I like to primarily read sources from the other side. Because I like to know what they believe better than they do when I argue with them, then I crush them because I already know what they're going to say. It's pretty awesome. I'm thinking, got to think a couple moves ahead so you can get the zingers in. But you look at this kind of stuff, that's what you need to do if you're creating politics from scratch in your fantasy world. If you got two warring kingdoms, I mean, you could go, hi, we're the bad guy kingdom of skulls and ravens, and hi, we're the good guy kingdom of light and happy elves and whatever. You could do that.
Well, okay. So
I mean, Mordor versus, Gondor.
Yeah, I mean, one has a giant flaming eye that watches out and sends murder orcs after you.
Well, to be fair, the book didn't have the flaming eye. They added the flaming eye for cool effect, which the eye was cool. I think Tolkien would approve of the eyeball.
Servants of War.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Okay.
Very
effectively political. Two kingdoms fighting against each other in a fantasy world. Okay.
And they're both douchebags.
And they're both horrible and awful.
Oh, yeah, because if we go by American politics of 2023, no, they both suck. I mean, they're awful.
I mean, one is pseudo Russians who have made giant armored suits of death.
Out of dead golems.
And the person who's effectively running the country wants to, invade hell.
To harvest the souls of the damned as an energy source.
I mean, as you do. And then there's the opposite side, Almacia, as we, in the story. They're pretty good though. I mean, they only made gas that melts your skin and flesh to death.
Yeah, the poison gas guys are actually probably a little less violent.
But don't worry, there's this third faction of this chick who's dead, who, is just, creates an entire hell world.
So in this world we created, the armies of hell are like an actually fairly reasonable faction, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
And so the thing is,
their gods forsook them.
They're
pissed off.
She just took in the orphans.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. The thing is, so we did this, and we created a layered political system. There's machinations going on. There's people fighting against each other. There are people doing what they do because it's the situation they have, and they're all trying to get ahead. One of the best lines, I can't remember the exact line, but it's the one about enlightened self-interest from Babylon 5. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great example of a show that was really good at writing believable politics.
The politics in Babylon 5 are...
Because
that's a highly political show.
It was a highly political show. There was a lot more depth to the politics. Because
I think that's why it's had such staying power in history.
Because you actually watch Babylon 5, it's pretty cheesy, right? Like the actual production of Babylon 5 is cheesy, but the actual politics of Babylon 5, there's depth to them, and there's not really perfect good guys, perfect bad guys.
I think this is why a lot of Star Trek fans ended up gravitating towards Deep Space Nine, because it was highly political, but it was personalized politics.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not a Star. We've established on the show. Yeah. I mean, I'm only passingly a Star Trek watcher, and I've never watched most of them, so I don't know. But I think honestly that the sci-fi that stays with us, there's going to be those elements. What's about thematic sci-fi? We're talking about Firefly.
Yeah. Oh, politics is massive in that.
Massive politics,
as is religion, obviously.
Which is really funny because Joss Whedon is not politically the same as Malcolm Reynolds.
No, they're opposite.
Yeah. Joss Whedon would have fought for the Alliance.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Douche.
Exactly. And so, but the thing is though, the politics of this show.
That's what he gets for making Alien 4.
Oh gosh, Proto Firefly. Ugh. The good thing that there was some good scenes with Ron Perlman. Which, speaking of people with terrible politics, there you go. Great actor.
Yeah.
Dumb as a pile of hammers.
I do love him as an actor.
He's a great actor. Great actor. He's just, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, so if you give, okay, so like I said, these are all political things. Now, done poorly, it is a turnoff.
Yeah.
Star Wars prequels.
Ugh.
Who gives a crap about the Trade Federation? I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't make any sense. It's boring.
Well, none of the main characters are in the Trade Federation.
Yeah.
So why did we care?
What is going? I don't even know.
It doesn't matter. We were never given a reason to actually care about that politically speaking.
Sense. I mean, honestly, that could have been done really well.
Well, what it is, it actually goes back to, I think, what you were talking about earlier. It was distilled down to such a simplistic form that it lost all gravity to it.
Yeah.
It's like, we're a trade federation. Basically, we do trade stuff.
We're here to do evil.
But we're bad guy capitalism. The
With
end.
Our robot armies. And then the sequel movies, may they rest in hell.
Were there any politics in those?
Dude, okay, so what well, there was, but they didn't, it made, what the crap was the First Order? It just was stupid.
No, the political ramifications of the face-off, of the two factions facing off, right? The New Order versus the New Republic make zero sense.
No, it was just dumb. It was dumbed down.
Because what it's at the end of Force Awakens, right? Where they blow up the planets.
The first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, they used Planet Death
They
Star.
they use Planet Death Star to kill like all of the
And-
a bunch of planets.
and it had like faster than so it had a death beam that could cross the galaxy in seconds, yet was visible to the naked eye of the people on the planets it was blowing up.
Correct.
So I think so it decelerates before it blows up your planet
Just to look cool though.
for dramatic effect.
Right.
And then once you once you suck up the sun of your planet Death Star, do you drive that planet to another sun to pick up another sun to use?
Well, I mean, if you have the intergalactic space Winnebago planet, I mean, that's what I would do.
And then why didn't they just do the Holdo maneuver on it?
Exactly.
Oh wait, we've had another episode about internal logical consistencies. We'll not.
Yeah.
We'll not.
Well, we've been joking that at some point for our supporters, we should basically do riff tracks
Of that
of the sequel
god
trilogy.
awful movie.
But here's the point
If you
though.
took a DVD of that movie and you dropped it in holy water, it would go off like Coke and Mentos.
Yeah, dude, there's vampires offended by you right now. How dare you compare the evilness of that trilogy to them?
Okay, so we've diverged into just logical inconsistencies.
But here's the political point.
yeah,
Okay. At no point in that series does the politics make sense. And does it actually carry any real weight?
no.
Because we go from, oh yeah, there's a new republic, I guess, and they're pretty big. They span the entire galaxy and rule everything. But then there's the new order.
No, they don't.
I guess they don't rule the galaxy.
So we just brought the Empire back. Even
So-
though we beat them last time.
So pew pew, and then we start off in movie 2, and I guess now the roles are reversed overnight, which is not how it happens. And
That's how war goes.
well, and then speaking of war, the political nature of the military within this makes zero sense.
Oh yeah.
And not only does it make zero sense logically, it's bad from a writing standpoint.
Yeah.
Because it is obvious that it is it doesn't take into consideration the various levels of politics that exist within the military chain of command.
Yeah. If you're gonna have, so when I get to the politics, I mean, you can get even down to like the interpersonal politics, like military rank stuff. Internal logical consistency.
Correct.
You gotta have it. You
Correct.
gotta have
And
it.
again, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay. And the thing is, you don't have to explain everything to the readers, but what you do show has to make logical sense to the readers.
And again, it needs to make sense to or it needs to conform to what your character is doing. Because if, again, not every character sees the architecture and they walk into a room. Well,
Yeah. Or knows the make and model of the dress.
not every character understands, for example, chain of command, or understands the political party structure of your fantasy world, or understands the political interactions between, say, Earth versus the MCR versus the Belters, right?
Yeah.
To use an Expanse reference. So not every character is going to understand that to detail, but they might understand, you know what? Belters super hate us because we're Earthers.
And the watchers, the viewers, the audience, understand it in the first episode.
Yeah, it's very simple. Part is easy, but it doesn't matter until you start getting into the heads of characters where they're involved in the politics. In fact, this is Holden's almost entire story arc long term. It's how he becomes an ice miner to an honest to goodness political juggernaut.
Galactic paladin.
Yeah. Like true good, like Paragon on one side will try not to do the wrong thing.
That brings up a really good point. We'll glom onto this because this is a show we both watched, and I think it illustrates a really good thing. Notice that there's 3 different factions. Each faction has their pros and cons.
Yes.
Each faction has their goods and bads.
Yes.
Each faction screws up. Earth does horrible things.
Yeah.
Earth is, when you get to Earth, you see Earth is crappy.
Earth is a disaster.
Earth is a disaster.
The MCR are a mess.
They're a mess. and they completely fall apart. When notice that politically, it's like so when the MCR loses the dream of like we don't need to terraform Mars anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody bails. It ruins it.
Yep.
But then the Belters are a train wreck. Even though at first you think, okay, these are the good guys. These are the ones that are picked
No,
on.
they are not.
Yeah, it's like some of them are, some of them are not. Some of them are terrorists.
Yeah, some of them drop, asteroids on
But
Earth.
even the terrorists, you get why they're doing it.
Sure.
And then you got dudes like Fred Johnson, who I think is a fantastic character.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the characters I was going to bring up.
Because this is a character that spans multiple worlds.
Mhm.
He's got a foot in two worlds.
Yep.
He's got a past. He's got a history. He's got politics.
A violent history.
Violent war criminal history.
Yeah.
He does bad things, but he does bad things for a believable reason, and it is all based upon the politics they established in this universe. And notice really kind of cool too. Those politics aren't 2023 topic X of the day.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, they're not.
They're bigger, universal, eternal things.
Mhm. Well, I'm a big fan of Gundam. Everyone knows this now.
Oh yeah, he's a huge Gundam fan.
But when you watch those various series, it's the same sort of thing. You're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, so these people are committing genocidal war crimes on each other. Okay, so that's what your politics are. Gundam, people think of Gundam, you're like, giant stompy robots. No. I mean, that's there, and that's why it's awesome, and that's what sells models that I build.
You're in it for the genocide.
Gundam is like 90% politics, because in a galaxy, in a galactic wide conflict, how individual characters deal with politics that have galactic ramifications that are bigger than them is very intriguing.
It is.
Okay. This episode is long, and
We could go for another
we could
hour
probably
easily.
easily go for another hour. Okay, we talked about obviously The Expanse is a show that does politics well. Off the top of your head, can you think of any other shows where you really thought you were like, man, the way they handle politics in this was actually pretty good?
Sci-fi and fantasy wise, I
Well,
could
anything.
think of some bad ones.
Sure, yeah. What?
Oh, The Witcher.
Oh my gosh, it's so bad.
It's so bad.
The show.
Yes,
The show.
The show.
Because actually,
It is very political.
Because
I
actually
have no
the-
flipping idea what's going on.
the books and the games, the politics within the books and the games is actually excellent.
Okay, I'll say that because like Witcher 3, the politics in Witcher 3 in the game were easily followable. I understood, and you had like
Super
8
interesting.
different kingdoms. Each one had its purposes, its heroes,
Yeah.
its villains, and what they're going for, and their factions, and it all made sense. And you were the
Mm-hmm.
lone wanderer, badass, bouncing around between them. Made perfect sense. The TV show,
A freaking mess.
dumb AF, dude. I am
A freaking mess. I rage quit.
dude. I played the video game. Oh, I mean, I'm like 98% completed that video game, right?
It's so good.
I got the role playing game book.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I have that over here somewhere.
Yeah. So I've read it. I know this universe, right? And I didn't know what was going on.
No.
I mean, this is bad. Bad politics, bad writing,
Okay.
dumb.
I'll give you an example of interesting, good, and diverse politics, and you're going to agree with me. It's contemporary. Since you went fantasy, I'll go contemporary.
Okay.
Bosch.
Excellent. Yes. Good example.
And multifaceted,
Different sides.
radically different sides.
Yeah. I was actually.
It's a show that could have easily gone the way of Nathan Fillion's The Rookie, where all cops are stupid, basically, and all the laws are stupid, and all cops should just hold hands with everyone that they're talking to
There was
and never shoot them.
only one episode, or actually one season, where Bosch pulled its punches on the politics. And it
you
was
talking about final
the
season?
J. Edgar.
I'm
pretty sure that something got cut from that episode.
Me too. I'm almost positive.
Specifically because of the rioting that was going on. Because I'm pretty damn from the okay. For those of you who haven't seen the show, J. Edgar's a great guy, but he's going through some stuff right now,
Which you understand.
understand 'cause
politically, I mean, character-wise, politically speaking, you get
brilliant
it.
writing. And there's a scene where he starts to rough up a prisoner, or not a prisoner, but a guy they're arresting
Yeah.
in a violent situation. And what he does on the show is actually very mild.
Well, it's almost kind of by the book.
Yeah, but then they break it up and everybody's all upset at him.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm pretty sure he put the boot to him, or gave him the hickory shampoo.
Yeah,
and it got cut out.
started beating him while he was down.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
And so I'm pretty sure they cut that.
Yeah, because somebody at the network was like, "No, I'm scared."
Well, I mean, okay, that show handled totally not Black Lives Matter,
Really well, actually.
and handled it exceptionally well.
Really well.
The internal struggle of politics, good and bad, from a police
The
department was
chief
excellent.
versus the mayor. Brilliant. Well done.
Well, and seeing how he goes from chief, how Irving goes from interim chief to chief, and seeing his whole political, basically degradation.
Yep.
Like, it's so fascinating, it's so good. And then, of course, you and I loving detective and cop noir like we do. We need to get Howard on the show and talk for like 3 hours about this.
Yeah, actually.
It's so awesome to politically see a character like Bosch, who's this as we talked about Casey, this tarnished paladin.
Yeah, so it actually hits the 2023 or whatever year it was, 2019 or whatever year it was,
2020.
topic of the day X, and it hit it and hit them pretty fairly.
Oh yeah, super good. Okay, that's all the time we have for you today. Hope you liked the episode. It's been fun talking about our 2 forbidden topics so far. I don't know that you're going to get a serious forbidden episode number 3 until we get a guest star on, because Larry and I aren't going to talk about that in a room by ourselves. That's weird.
It's just weird, man. I'm not good at that. Like,
Yeah.
I can't write. I can write romance. But like actual sexy stuff, I can write good relations. I'm actually pretty good at writing relationships, male, female. I can do that. But like the sexy time, bad. Sorry, guys.
No, not my thing. All right. So that's all we have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the supersized episode, and we'll see you on the next one.
WriterDojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nivo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
The media sucks and is evil. They're villains. I'm like, yeah. It's like, politicians are backstabbers and horrible. I'm like, yeah. It's like, these detectives, they're freaking heroes. I'm like, yeah, right, they are.